Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the shadowed heart of suspense, where every breath could be your last, and each frame brims with danger, there's a storyteller with a masterful hand, a director who lures you into the chill of the unknown, yet knows just when to turn the light on. Jason Bourque is a master of cinematic suspense who can plunge audiences into chilling, high-stakes drama, only to expertly guide them toward the warm embrace of a Hallmark happy ending. A Canadian director, screenwriter, and producer who has spent decades leading viewers through the depths of psychological thrillers, high-stake dramas, and ethical mazes. With films like Black Fly, Colonizer, The Art of War II, Shadow Company, To Stolen Daughter, to name a few, he knows how to dive into the deep, darkest corners of the human psyche. Jason has built a reputation for gripping storytelling that captures the sharp edges of conflict and consequences. Now, Jason's journey began as a self-proclaimed 80s film nerd, driven by a fascination with complex narratives and characters who must face intense moral and ethical challenges. With a gift for weaving gripping plots that explore humanity's shadows, his early work sets a thrilling tone. These dark explorations earned him multiple accolades and firmly established him as a director unafraid to venture into the unexplored. But Jason's creative journey doesn't end with high-octane suspense and psychological thrillers. His versatility shines as he deftly switches gears to romance and family drama, creating heartfelt narratives for Hallmark and Lifetime. Films like Christmas Tree Grows in Colorado, one of Vanity Fair's top Christmas movies of the year, and My Christmas Family Tree, and Our Holiday Story. Well, these are testaments to his ability to find the sweet center of any story, transforming tense emotions into heartfelt connections. His creative vision has led him to win 5 awards: Best Director, Outstanding TV Cable, and Leo Awards, along with 12 other nominations. From The Sweetest Heart to Home for Christmas, Jason proves he can warm hearts just as skillfully as he can raise pulses. With award-winning works and an ever-growing slate of projects, he has mastered the art of engaging audiences across genres, making each film of his a journey from thrill to thrill, whether it's a heart-racing chase or to the close glow of romance. In the end, Jason is a master not only of crafting chills, but also of igniting warmth. So buckle up, as you're in for an unforgettable ride with a twist, a thrill, and a heartfelt finish. Please join me in welcoming Jason Bourque. Much for your time and welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on. Man, that's quite the intro. It's like, how do I live up to that?
We're gonna find out over this piece. I want to go back in time with you, Jason.
Yeah.
You're self-proclaimed 80s nerd.
Yeah.
What was it about the 80s film that you just loved so much?
It's funny, like growing up, I'm getting on a little bit. I usually get mistaken as an adult because of my age, but I'm a big kid at heart. I love scary movies. When I was like 12, I saw The Thing and Alien back to back. Two amazing, incredible films. One directed by John Carpenter, the other directed by Ridley Scott. With one of those crazy old VHS machines. It was one of those top loaders. And at that point, like we were just obsessed with VHS. I was growing up in St. John, New Brunswick. We'd get like stacks of these VHS movies and binge. And that really had an effect on me. So it's funny. So the 80s for me nailed down what I wanted to be, which was a storyteller, which was a filmmaker. Those early 80s nailed it. Usually, that age, like 13 to 14, that's when you make all those big decisions and your brain starts to kind of like connect and all the synapses start firing. So I always knew I wanted to do that. So I started at an early age, like wanting to tell stories.
Now we're 13, we're 14-year-olds, Jason. You're out there in the world. If it wasn't this, what was like the 11 and 12-year-old mind of Jason going through? Firefighter, pilot,
Oh,
astronaut?
you know, I'm from a generation, we always used to say marine biologist. I don't know, that would pop up a lot. Um, I was always into art. I would always draw. I would always do up my own comics. Graphic design was something possibly. Throughout the 80s, I was in high school, I was always voted the most creative because of what I would draw, what I would paint. And eventually I did go to school. I went to UVic and the University of Victoria, and I majored in sculpting and painting. So that creativity has always been a part of me. But I tell you, when I was a teenager, I had the VHS camcorder, and at that point, you had the VCR literally was on my hip. You had this big clunky thing on your hip, and it was all cabled together. And I would shoot zombie movies, like me and my friends, like 13, 14, 15. This new technology. The first movie I ever did when I was like 14 was called Dead Skin. My sister was a zombie. Everybody was zombies. It was like Sam Raimi type stuff. I would make my own blood with like corn syrup and foods, like cornstarch and a little bit of coffee grounds to give the blood texture, using the garden pump to like spray blood. And I would actually take like to create all the fake limbs. If you know those tennis ball containers, you can like stuff your hand in that pretty good, and it looks like a stump. So I'd cover that in Play-Doh and have all the blood spraying everywhere. It's like, I tell you, it was like a part of me. I love that stuff.
And it's neat because your background, when you eventually went into, sculpting and arts, it probably gave you this additional thirst to it. But you had said like your movies to start off was like The Thing and Alien.
Yeah, totally.
Out of those two, which one really left the bigger impact for you?
The Thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would say The Thing. I, I think both have, core group of people, very contained, both very scary, but the ending to The Thing just haunted the hell out of me. The ending of The Thing, eh? Like, it's two guys, the whole place is on fire, the temperature's dropping, they're gonna die, and one of them is an alien, and they just start drinking whiskey together, and that boom, 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 boom. That John Carpenter synth score kind of kicks in. So I would say that one haunted me more. It stuck with me more, I would say. Although Alien again is like, I guess it's an allegory for Vietnam. It's like it's scary as hell, and the design of it's fantastic. But I would say The Thing.
It's a unique perspective, to be honest with you, Jason, because like The Thing never really franchised out, right? Like Alien franchised, and they're still making them today with their different effects and stuff like that. But The Thing was kind of like, no, we can't do any better than this right now. So we're just going to stop and keep it creepy forever.
Yeah, I mean it didn't do that well when it came out. Unfortunately, the super scary alien was going up against a cute, cuddly ET alien at the exact same time, and America chose ET with that ET photo rather than like this cool thing with the dog's head splitting apart like a freaking orange peel. And oh my God, the practical effects in that movie to this day stand up. I love practical effects. I was just involved in a horror movie that I exec produced, and all the creatures were practical. Loved it.
So why is that important, practical versus the special effects? People have said before, CGI is just so easy and we can put you in a morph suit and away you go. But what is it about the practical effects that people appreciate more?
We still feel it on a visceral level. Terrifier 3, made for like $2 million. Now I think the biggest unrated horror film of all time. I think it just crossed 50 million at the box office. All practical. I think you can go in and you can make little adjustments with the CGI, especially to help with maybe some splatter effects and a few other things. But I think at a deep down level, we feel it more when it's practical effects. So it's certainly the technology has gotten a whole lot better. Silicone helps out a lot with prosthetics. A lot of the stuff that we used to work with, because I wanted to get into special effects as well. It's definitely been a lot of advances. So I think even more so, puppeteering, the mechanics of animatronics are
Mm.
certainly at a whole different level now, I think, as well.
I like that you said that because it's to a point, here's a green screen, we can throw some stuff up, but when we really get the splatter cannon or the tennis ball with the
Yeah.
arm wrapped around it and the garden hose, you know, it just brings a different style to how it goes.
I think so. Yeah, that's always been a part of me, like that type of um aesthetic, wanting to do creature features, and I had a big stack of comic books, the and Fangoria magazines as well, like boxes of this type of stuff. Even to the point that when my wife, I joke around that she kind of took me in because she had the car, the dog, and the condo, and I had my box of Fangoria magazines. I mean, I've always been one of those indie filmmakers, again, and going through hard times of being very creative and living off my Visa card, but being very much about writing those scripts that ultimately were born out of growing up in New Brunswick, all those old VHS movies. To this day, I love anything involved with small towns. I know that's like a Stephen King thing. At that age, I also was obviously, like just loving any Stephen King novel I could get my hands on. But yeah, burnt out pickups and old barns, that aesthetic is still something that I love dearly. And I lean towards that from photography to painting, but ultimately my filmmaking.
Now, when we talk about these passions and the loves from the practical effects, the rusted trucks, the small towns, the well on a property,
Uh-huh.
what are the aspects of the thriller genre that you find particularly challenging when working with stuff like this?
Um, well, I think thrillers for me. Oh, first off, I should mention, not to freak out any of the viewers, but I grew up next to a serial killer in New Brunswick. His name was Noel Winters. The big joke in New Brunswick is that the summers are great, but the winters will kill you. Because Noel Winters shotgunned a couple neighbors I knew, and a local kid helped dispose of the bodies. So my parents thought it'd be great to, like, let's raise the kids in the country, but obviously it wasn't the best decision. But that also had an effect on me, and I think that's why thrillers resonate so much for me as well, from that end of the game. So yeah, it's interesting with thrillers because I do find what I like about them is you could do them contained.
Hmm.
You could do them in one house. Survival horror, like Night of the Living Dead type of a thing, is very appealing. Um, the challenges I find, honestly, is just finding good stories to tell. I was lucky enough that out of this experience of growing up next to Noel Winters, um, when I was in film school, my script writing teacher said, "Write what you know," and I wrote a script about it called Blackfly, and wrote it in 1998. I was in film school at the time, dusted it off while I was doing Sci-Fi Channel movies. And I always thought it wouldn't be that much of a challenging script because it's very contained, but Telefilm got behind it. So I finally got to make my Blackfly true crime horror movie based on my childhood. I was able to make it in 2014. And to this day, I think it's probably the best thing that I've done. But it's interesting because it did have a lot of challenges, and I focus a little bit more on aftermath rather than Terrifier type gore. It was driven a little bit more by character because I obviously matured a lot by the time that I got a chance to make it.
It's neat that you bring this up where it's write what you know and that you were in film school and these are the projects. Now, it's neat because we know that you've done some writing, we know you've done the directing, we know you've even done producing, but how come you
Mhm.
never fell into the world of acting?
Oh, acting? Oh,
Hmm.
you know what's funny? I've only done a little bit of acting. When I was in visual arts at the University of Victoria, I had the opportunity of doing like basically it's the 1 year introduction to theater. So I've always liked theater, but I honestly I leaned so much more behind the scenes. Even in high school, being involved in lots of the plays and so forth, it was always more behind the scenes. So anytime that I actually acted, I don't think I have much of a, I don't know. I'm okay with it. Now I just do cameos. I think my last cameo was like a drug dealing dad, and I had my little dog kind of strapped to my chest and a little Bjorn type thing. And it was for a comedy called The Right One with David Koechner from, David Koechner. Super funny. We had a lot of stand-up comedy in it. And if I do lean towards any type of acting, comedy comes easiest. I'm a big goofball from that end. But I have to say, like, now my focus, I love to direct, but at the same time, if there's a great story to tell, and I have no ego with this, I'll team up with a first time director, and I have
Hmm.
multiple times if it's again a great story to tell and it's a unique voice. It's just so hard to find stories and storytellers that I can get behind, also financially, how to make these and pull them off because I survive in the indie trenches. But yeah, I'm totally fine producing and I love to write. If you look at my credit list, it's like my director list. It's a huge mix.
Yes.
thrillers, horrors, sci-fi, rom-coms. And my list is huge. I've had over 30 produced, but at the same time, that's also because I love to collaborate. One of my co-writers is like my mom. It's like we've had a few Lifetime movies produced. So my trick is that I collaborate a lot. I co-write a ton. I love to co-write. That's sort of my method.
I love that you said that. We're going to co-write, we're going to work with everybody and dive into it to tell a good
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about a good story, when we're talking about the experience that you have, what surprises would people be, surprised to learn about from a behind the scenes on set?
Um, I think the amount of compromises a director has to truly make that the average audience doesn't even know about. I think that's pretty amazing what happens behind the scenes.
Hmm.
It's like when I Blackfly, I have a siege of a biker gang on a house. Ultimately, financing fell through. We couldn't afford all of that. So behind the scenes, it's like, how am I going to pull this off? And what I ended up doing was focusing again on character, focused on aftermath. It's the teenager running up towards the house as he hears all the guns going off. He knows he's going into something that's going to be totally horrific, but it's sound effects.
Mhm.
And then when he actually goes into the house, it's the splatter, the dead bodies, all of these elements, and the terror of walking into something and you don't know what exactly you're going to find, rather than actually seeing it play out in, like a slow-mo gore fest with the, shells being ejected from the guns and all the choreographed action scenes. I had to cut all of that. Um, but again, I think from a storytelling perspective, focusing on character, it totally helped. I think in some ways it makes for a better movie, that I didn't go that route. And there's a lot of decisions that we make. Like I love to do ad libs. I love to go in with the script knowing it's a skeleton, and then we add the flesh to it. So I find I collaborate a lot with the cast, and I think a lot of the audience might see something play out, not knowing that that's not even scripted. That's me trusting the cast, having that partner in crime relationship, with my leads, and that's them actively contributing to how we can elevate this.
I like that you've said that. It's here's the skeleton of the project, and what I want from the scene is this. Let's get together. Do you find that the people that you cast or the people that come to set for your projects are just super open and willing, saying, "Yeah, let's ad lib this scene and know what we're going for," versus saying, "No, I really need a script, Jason. What is it that you want me to do?"
It's a combination. Each actor has a different style. It's funny. I did a mockumentary in India called Birdco, and it was going to be soft scripted. And unfortunately, all the cast that we had from Bollywood were so locked into the script, I ended up having to let the majority of them go, and I just cast my crew because I needed real people because of a mockumentary to do those interviews, to be able to just have conversations. And it was again very fascinating, but that's because I was working within a Bollywood model because we had to shoot it in Mumbai. When I did a movie called Drone, I was working with Sean Bean, and Sean Bean, I'm trying to think of the name of the we had this actor who was playing his wife. She's New York, very much ad libs, um, wonderful at it. But Sean Bean actually, it was oil and water because he's Shakespearean trained. He didn't want to mess with the line, but he's playing opposite someone who does nothing but mess with the lines. And to be honest, that kind of threw him off his game a little bit. So it's interesting part of my job, as well as a personality management with having actors sometimes that have different styles, is how to obviously get the best performance I can. I don't want to stomp on creativity. It is a big collaboration, but those different acting styles can definitely be something, I got to work out. On Blackfly, I had a lead who, to get into his mind space, he would go off in a corner and listen to AC/DC, and he didn't want to be talked to. And then I had another actor who was young, they all do this, where I could hear him off to the side talking to an actor, and he's like, "Yeah, listen, when I'm on the ground, you can really kick me. I want to feel it. I want to feel it." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I don't want this, the stunt coordinator to hear this shit," because he's like, it's like, "Oh, where's this guy?" Oh yeah, he's out dipping his hands in a snowbank for 10 minutes. So when we shoot the scene, he's going to be like totally freezing. You're an actor, Chris. You know what I'm talking about. I don't know what your method is, but again, my job is like everyone's different. I have those partner in crime talks. I'm like, okay, it's like, Chris, are you one take or are you three takes? Would you like to go first if I'm doing the ensemble, or would you like to go last? Chris, we got a big emotional scene. You're going to be so teary eyed. I could do your close up first if you think that's going to help that performance.
Oof.
And then we'll work backwards into the establisher, because I know that some actors they kind of get lost a little bit, or maybe not lost, but their process is maybe that first take they want to play it emotionally. It's all those little tweaks and understanding that comes through just like it's really good communication with the actors. So it pops up all the time. That's again part of my job is to how to create the trust bond is so key, especially if you're doing something like a Black Fly that's very dark, very psychological. And I still have to apply that to when I'm doing a Hallmark movie. Again, it's like emotional scenes. Sometimes we do the close up first if that best suits the actor and I get the performance.
It's neat that you brought that up because it makes it feel like you're such an approachable director and someone you can work with and saying, hey, what scene do you want to do first? Let's work together
Mhm.
to get the best for the audience and get the best out there. I think that's a really cool approach that you have to yourself and to your projects. Now, you had mentioned the different platforms of Hallmark and
Yeah.
sci-fi and thriller and stuff like this. How do you know when you have found the right actor? Oh, you know what? My question will be, how have you ever ran into that the actor for, let's say, a Hallmark movie also fits a horror or sci-fi or thriller that you're working on? And have you ever said, hey, I want you for both, or no, you're better fitted over here than you are there?
It's funny. I always see the potential. I mean, I have one coming out called A Reason for the Season. It's coming out this Thursday. It's a Hallmark movie, and my male lead, Kevin McGarry, he's off of a Hallmark Western series. Super nice guy, but I'm a kid from the '80s. The guy looks totally like a young Kurt Russell. I could do a Big Trouble in Little China and have as a sequel and have this dude playing the lead. The same mannerisms. He looks like him. Kevin's like he's fantastic. So the entire time that I'm shooting this Hallmark movie, I'm thinking, yeah, this guy would be awesome in an action movie. He has that charisma, he has that look, the physicality. There are times that I've done some that I've. It's usually backwards. It's usually a thriller that I've done. I work with Matt McCall a lot. He was in Black Fly. After we did Black Fly, we did two other Lifetime movies. And then we actually did a rom-com where he was my rom-com lead. And even though I had him play like the most despicable serial killing villains, I knew from those thrillers that he actually would be very good playing, like a rom-com lead who owns a vineyard, and the new real estate agent wants to snap it up. It's so yeah, it goes both ways. I think for me, it's more about having that core creative group that I trust. In the same way that I like to work with a lot of the same directors of photography. So I have that kind of second language.
Mhm.
And also with the same production designer sometimes. It's also with cast. If I know someone's fantastic and we click, and I usually get along with everybody, but if I know that they truly have something, then I will want to obviously bring them back into the fold in other movies. And it's Scorsese does it with Leonardo DiCaprio. It's we see this all the time, and I totally understand why. I totally get it.
Now, Jason, is there a project on your desk that you just haven't been able to get off the ground and you just, I want this one to be next and
Oh,
it's not going to be next, but you really
Chris,
want
there's
it to
so
be?
many, so many. It's funny as from a producing standpoint. I found as a filmmaker, I had to get more into producing and more understand the business of it,
Mhm.
especially in Canada, because no one wants to wait by their phone. A lot of actors do it as well. I mean, how many actors now don't want to wait, so they just shoot something on the weekend? What can you shoot that totally will show off your skill set? So I'm in the same boat. I got to technically audition to get these gigs. I have to go up against other directors. But I find, again, also having writing skills and producing skills are so key from that end. So, yeah, it's it's interesting from a producing standpoint and finding the stories, I think, like I said, that are worth telling. But the ones that are the most important that I would love to get off the ground, they are mostly horror movies. It goes back to The Thing and Alien. Some are Lovecraftian. I have this one called The Vineyard I've been dying to do. I have another one called 16 that's more of an action thriller. It's so many. The big one is Ivy that we're getting close. And that it's sort of like the aftermath of an exorcism, all in an ER during a hurricane. Things like this, which are contained, original, but they still can hit the beats because I ultimately have to be very aware of what sells. And that's, to be honest, I mean, like I'm doing these Hallmark movies. Black Fly, great for festivals, gave me a wonderful calling card. Maybe I have like 600 people like it on IMDb since it came out in 2014. I just had the premiere of my last Hallmark movie and it was over 3 million views in one night.
Yeah.
So,
Pick and choose.
pick and choose. And I know there's a lot of room in between because, like I said, I mean, if I do a Hallmark movies, if I'm lucky, I can do say 4 of them a year. We shoot those in like 15-day prep, 15-day shoot. I get a week to edit. I still got a lot of time out of the year to do all my sweat equity and
Yep.
develop projects, of which it's Canada. So 80% of them fall apart. But of that 20%, maybe I can get something going. And again, maybe I won't make any money off it, but it also balances out.
Jason, where can people learn more about you?
I got my website, jasonbourque.ca, obviously IMDb. Hey, I love people following me on Instagram. They can see pictures of my dog, Frankie. She's like 18 and a half, wears cute little hoodies. Um, she actually has like 8,000 followers. She's doing really well, Chris. Yeah, so I try to keep somewhat of a social media presence. I like to teach. I like to mentor. I'm always reading scripts, and I try not to be in a box.
Mhm.
And that happens to a lot of directors that I know. If you look me up, you're going to see a lot of Christmas in those titles. But like I said, at the same time, I just finished an exec and co-writing a movie called Night Comes and starred Daphne Keane. And Daphne Keane's off of like Logan,
Mhm.
the feral kid with the claws.
Yep.
She's just off of Deadpool and Wolverine. Also starred Alexander Ludwig from Vikings. And it was all practical creature effects. So like I said, I gotta do a mix. And even today I'm working on 2 scripts. One I co-wrote with my mom. We got telefilm money called The Widows Club. So I got to do a pass on that and also a pass on 16, which is this action movie that we're getting some bites on. So got to keep busy. It's
Absolutely.
I always thought it would slow down a little bit the older I got, but I find the hustle never stops. I got to hustle even more so, I think.
It's the sweat equity. That's the
Yeah,
best part.
totally. Sweat equity.
And Jason, can you share with us what you're drinking in your cup? What kind of coffee are you drinking today?
Oh, I love coffee. You know what's funny? Because of COVID, when that hit, I used to go to coffee shops all the time. But my wife and I, she's a costume designer, Heather Douglas. We ended up getting an espresso machine.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's like I know it's a downhill slide of like so many of those little cups that you go through, but we love it. We got the nice little, like coffee cups. She hates this. I just use this to bug her because I have to do shows up in Kelowna and I usually stay at the Sandman. So we got all these beautiful cups for like the Nespresso machine, and then I got this big ugly Sandman mug I was given for free because that's where I'm forced to stay doing these movies sometimes.
I love it.
Away shows.
And Jason, if someone said to you, what's something that scares you? What would you tell them?
Yeah, boy. You know what? I sometimes just deep, dark holes in the ground. I talk about The Thing and Alien. I saw a movie called The Pit when I was like 8. And it's a super crappy movie, but it's this kid who's like 11 years old and he finds this giant black hole in the ground and these creatures are in there and you don't really see them, but he always like throws the bully in there, his grandmother who he hates in the wheelchair, he dumps her in the pit. And there's something about that deep, dark hole that's always kind of freaked me out. But yeah, I don't know. It's called The Pit. You could look up the trailer. It's pretty funny. But like I said, it just gave me nightmares. So I guess giant holes in the ground kind of freaked me out.
Jason, I have time for one last question for you today. And thank you so much for your time today on Coffee
Okay.
with Chris. What makes Jason Bourque smile?
Like I said, I'm pretty goofy. I try not to go down the rabbit hole of watching like pug videos. I think pugs are amazing, and they always make me smile. I love dogs. Dogs make me smile constantly throughout the day. So I'll just keep it simple and say dogs.
I love it. No more pug videos, that's for sure. Uh, as I said, that was the last question I had for you today on Coffee with Chris. Thank you so much, Jason Bourque, for your
Oh,
time.
hey.
Everyone out there, get to Google Jason Bourque, check out everything that he's up to. Get out there. You got to find this guy. You're going to love everything that he's doing. Everyone out there, thank you so much for your time today. Remember to smile to inspire and have yourselves a fantastic day.
Thanks.